The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Best odds guaranteed on all Irish and UK racing. 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.
Welcome to episode 15 of the Racing Pod on Off the Ball with John Duggan and Johnny Ward. Remember, we're here every Friday with analysis, race previews, tips, stories, interviews and crack. The first half of the pod each week is free to air. The second part is exclusively for members. So be sure to sign up by going to offtheball.com/join. And for members this week, we'll preview Saturday's action at Cheltenham and Newcastle. Subscribe now for all the juicy info. Johnny, how are you?
Good, JD.
Good week for you last week, Johnny, in the pod. Couple of winners.
Great week. You know, now is the hour, 12-1.
Now was
Yay,
your hour.
man. But more to the point, Gavin Cromwell is the man. And when he was on our live show, we spoke about his rating of Britain, and his strike rate has been staggering. Sean Flanagan on both. Yeah, man, kind of unceremoniously threw him off after the line. Ground is extremely testing at the moment. But very surprised at the 12-1 now is the hour. Didn't think it'd be that
was your members' nap, Johnny.
So happy days, yeah.
Well done.
And so good weekend. Your own horse ran well as well.
It was second. We should have done the forecast. Yeah, my silver lining.
So, so
this is at Haydock.
Very, very testing ground is the team, but we've had some decent weather this week, and I'm glad that the Adonis card goes ahead tomorrow.
That's at Kempton. So Gavin Cromwell's strike rate in Britain this season, 25%, 11 winners and 44 runners, 382,000 sterling in prize money earned. Johnny, 18 days to Cheltenham. If you're booking your trip, if you've never been before, do's and don'ts. Anything that comes to mind?
Wow. It looks like it's a little bit different in that the sales haven't been as high this year, so it's not quite as manic. I've gone over on the boat. I've gone over on the plane, and on
an automobile as well, like John Candy.
What a movie. John Candy, my brother's favourite movie, yeah. I've been part of an automobile from the boat to Cheltenham. There's a scene in Only Fools and Horses where Rodney goes out on he kind of meets this girl Cassandra, and he meets her in a late night nightclub, and she says she'll drop him home, and he's so embarrassed about where he lives. He gets her to drop him off at this really, really posh part of town that he doesn't live in, and eventually it starts raining and he has to walk home, but it's because he's embarrassed about where he lived. But I was in Cheltenham, and I was brought to a match by somebody in during Cheltenham, and he couldn't have known that I was staying in a particular place because I was basically crashing on a couch, and it was against the whole rules and regulations. So I had to be dropped off like way out of town after the match so that he wouldn't know that I was crashing.
Was it raining, Johnny?
What?
Was it raining?
And it was raining.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're now the Rodney of the.
I am the Rodney
of the Racing Pod, and I'm the Del Boy.
You're the Del Boy.
Lots of phrases coming in, Kushti and.
Basically, you can crash in many. It's hard to get accommodation in Cheltenham, so you have to make.
Yeah, I've stayed with the same couple for 20 years.
Cool.
On the road outside the racecourse, so I'm very lucky.
Amazing.
New Barn Lane. So
I've stayed up in Winchcombe, which is a stunning village.
Sounds something like out of Wisnall and I.
Yeah, Winchcombe. Yeah, Penrith tea rooms, but
Withnail,
really. So I've stayed up there as well, and that's 15 minutes maybe bus from the racecourse, and it's beautiful, beautiful part of England.
Yeah, there's the Cotswolds. I mean, a few things I remember I made a note of this. I did an article a few years ago. So if you're going to be there on the Tuesday for the Supreme Novices Hurdle, when the roar goes up, get a good position. That's important because it is really, really packed with the crowds back now. If you want to give yourself the best possible chance of making money, don't use your Thursday money on Tuesday. And also do your form the night before, your form study. Cramming won't cut it, I don't believe. Watch the market in the morning. The market moves. Be mindful about the going, the horses that act in it. Watch a race at the bottom of the hill at some stage, just see the gradient, how tough it is up that Cheltenham hill, that famous hill. Throw your newspaper in the air, your hat in the air if you win. Be selective about where you eat at the track. Some culinary offerings are better than others. But do find the place that does the ring donuts, Johnny. I don't know if you've ever had the ring donuts at Cheltenham.
I actually think I have. So there we are.
The tented village is good for hats, good for paintings, good for a bit of looking around. And then mind your money, you can get very packed on Gold Cup Day and shop around for the best prices.
Paul Keeley did a piece this week in the Racing Post, and he's just on about he basically said, I've gotten a headache trying to figure out where Willie Mullins' horses are going. And these are the 3 novice hurdles, not the juvenile hurdles, the 3 novice hurdlers. Supreme. These are his entries.
Yeah.
His entries, Willie Mullins alone. Ballyburn, Mystical Power, Tully Hill, Asian Master, Billerkey Dickey. Il Atlantique, Mr. Giff, Another Way, Western Diego, Daddy Longlegs, Gold Dancer, Jimmy Desai, Absurd, Super Sunday. There won't be as many runners in the race as that. Bearing Bingham, Ballyburn, Il Atlantique, Mystical Power, Reading Tommy Wrong, Billerky Dicky, Predators Gold, Gold Dancer, Daddy Longlegs, Jimmy Desai, Lecky Watson, Mercury, Mr. Giff, Asian Master, Dr. Eggman, Chapeau de Soleil, O'Moore Park, Spread, Boss Ted, Albert Bartlett, High Class Hero, Dancing City, Reading Tommy Wrong, Lecky Watson, Largy Hill, Chapeau de Soleil, Dr. Eggman, Mercury, O'Moore Park, Spread, Boss Ted.
That's the point here.
It's astonishing. It's astonishing that Willie Mullins has far more for these races than everyone else put together. Basically,
Okay.
So the if you're on about the betting there, and be careful in terms of what you do. Like if you're betting anti-post now, bet non-run or no bet if you can, and be very careful what you're doing, because Willie just at the moment.
There was a horse called 543 that they all
Yeah.
thought would run in the 2 mile race, the Supreme Officers Hurdle at Cheltenham, and he switched him at the last moment to the 2.5 mile, and he won a 7-1 a few years ago.
I think he won against Van Almar that year.
That's right, Mess Morris's horse.
Yeah.
And also, Willie Mullins is at Ebazine win the Supreme Officers Hurdle at 40-1, and Tourist Attraction win the Supreme Officers Hurdle at 25-1. Second horse string horses, as it were, we saw with the Dublin Race Festival, Danny Mullins with the treble the first 3 races. So, but I think when it distills down, I'm not a fan of anti-post betting personally, even if it's non-run or no bet. I want to see on the day what the conditions are like, who the jockeys are on,
Yeah.
and then make a judgment on what Willie's decided, because Willie often doesn't tell anybody until the last moment. Okay, Ballyburn, you think he'll run on one, and then he runs on another. So just wait until the day.
We don't know what the ground will be like.
And also, 11 o'clock in the morning, I think, is plenty of time to be making your decision after you've listened to the Racing Pod live from Cheltenham, which
Yeah.
will be going on at 10 o'clock in the morning in a few weeks' time.
Thanks to William Hill for the sponsorship, and we'll have very good offers for Cheltenham. But it is one week where really bookmakers are very keen to get bets on, and you'll get good offers.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Masters with golf.
Yeah,
It's the 1 week where you have a bit of an edge,
Very
potentially.
100%.
One thing about Cheltenham is don't back dodgy jumpers.
Mm.
This is national hunt. This is jumps racing. It's a track where it's always turning and twisting. Cheltenham is an undulating, turning, twisting track. I think you have to hold your position as a jockey. You have to have a bit of pace, and then you have to obviously have a bit of stamina. But horses that can't jump, especially in some of those like amateur races, the long distance chases, you see horses make mistakes and they're gone. And even like the first race on the Tuesday, the handicap chase, if you're not if you're not up there, forget about it.
Yeah, it's very difficult
To make up ground at Cheltenham, I find.
Very difficult. And at the moment as well, you can't really call the ground. Cheltenham
No.
hasn't been too bad, but
They
like,
haven't watered, which is interesting.
yeah, they haven't watered because there's been so much rain over the past few months. We have racetracks in Britain at the moment that are very, very testing, and in Ireland as well. Like it was March of last year where we really started to get heavy rainfall. So for 12 months, the ground has just gotten constant rain, and it's really finding horses out. So I'm not sure what the ground's going to be like at Cheltenham this
But
year.
it's always fresh ground, isn't it, on
fresh
the
ground,
older,
yeah.
the new courses.
But it's fresh that's had a lot of rain over the
Yeah,
last 12 months.
yeah, okay. So I was fascinated by this, and it just shows where British racing is at the moment. Of the Aintree Grand National weights that came out, there'll be 34 runners this year. It'll be a reduced field in the 13th of April, Saturday the 13th at Aintree. Of the first 34 on the weights, 27 are Irish trained. 27!
That's absolutely astonishing. It's astonishing. I think we've spoken about this before, why it's happened. British racing, for whatever reason, the powerhouse stables don't really have the horses that they have. There was a tendency of owners to come over to Ireland, British owners as well, to have their horse in Ireland, which is really, really strange when you think about it. Like British owners bringing their horse over.
Well, they just think maybe that Willie Mullins is the best. And that's
Willie Mullins is the best, or Gordon Elliott. Like,
Or Henry
so
de
he
Bromhead.
had the Cheveley Park horses, and then
Yes.
obviously the Caldwell horses as well, or Henry de Bromhead, maybe better prize money, although that's kind of debatable as well. But you know, the irony is that we've had people, making such a fuss about the Grand National in terms of animal rights and all that, but British racing doesn't actually have the runners to even support the race really now.
Yeah.
And it's staggering.
For the quality.
Basically, I think the bottom line is that point-to-point horses, they're very good point-to-point horses who are now trained to be very, very good in point-to-points as opposed to brought along slowly. They're bought very quickly by owners who keep the horse in Ireland, and a lot of them end up running the Grand National.
I was looking at the anti-post, if you do like an anti-post non-runner, no bet, if that's possible for the Grand National at the moment. The ones I kind of picked out, Nasalam, who won the Welsh National so impressively, if it is soft ground, Man or Mission for John McConnell, second in the big race in Newbury there before Christmas. Let's be clear about it. I thought it was interesting. Gavin Cromwell. Monbeg Genius was one horse I put into the 10 to follow, and Chambard, the horse that won the Beecher race there before Christmas at Aintree. Anything you picked out from the weights?
Yeah, not some decent shouts there. I do like Mallorishan actually. I think this is no he. I'm just trying to think. When he was second in the Welsh National, he was sort of saying that John McConnell was sort of saying like we're really going to look after this horse because you won't get a horse like this very often. But he is 8, so it's kind of like what
what the whole thing about the Grand National is now. It's all about. I think it's almost like a 4.25 mile hurdle race.
Yeah.
Now. I think the fencers are so more lenient. Whether I think that's the right thing or the wrong thing compared to what the Grand National was. Which is a jumping test for older horses generally. In 1940, Bogscar won, and that was the last 7-year-old to win until Noble Yates a couple of years ago. And Cork Rambler is an 8-year-old. It's all about the younger horses, I find now, that have a bit of stamina as opposed to the older horses, because a horse like Tiger Row would never have won the Grand National 30, 40 years ago.
He wouldn't have gotten around.
Wouldn't have got around.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at younger horses with lightweights. Vanillier, for example, has a lightweight.
Runs on Saturday, runs tomorrow.
Well, that's it. And we'll get into that actually now, Johnny. The Bobby Joe Chase 350 Ferry House on Saturday. Heavy, soft to heavy in places. First race, 1/2 at Ferry House. So 4 runners. I Am Maximus, Fury Road, Manella Crooner and Vanillier.
Yeah, it's kind of a team at Ferry House tomorrow where some of the fields are quite small, particularly as in the latter sort of half of the cards, and that will definitely be ground related. This is a tricky race. So Fury Road, who was blinder in the Albert Bartle, won by Monkfish all those years ago, and kind of has had a checkered career since. Form coming here, F5060. Vanillier, of course, you would have heard if you were listening to our live show, Sean Flanagan go on about how he's gone over in his head about Corrick Rambler and JJ Slevin. Funny enough, the two of them were done by Corrick Rambler, JJ Slevin and Sean Flanagan in big races last year. JJ on Fast or Slow at Cheltenham. So there was no shame in that. Now, ever since then, he obviously started off behind El Fabiolo over an inadequate trip. It's interesting how Gavin has trained this horse. He's been kind of taking him along slowly. He's actually not the most natural jumper, but the funny thing is, like as you're saying in relation to the national fences, he did take very well to them, and he's a few pounds higher now. I'm not sure this is his test though, and at the same time, would I trust I Am Maximus? Absolutely not, and I'm not sure he really wants to ground as bad as this either. Would I trust Manella Crooner? No, I wouldn't really. I wouldn't be overly confident on him. He can be a little bit in and out as well. Pulled up or thereabouts in his last 4 starts, so it's very, very tough.
It is tough. Manella Crooner would be the one I'd probably go for the prices, 11-4 with William Hill. I mean, won at Wexford, then pulled up, then third, hard to place, as you said. Might need to race fresh, I feel, with this horse. But £9 better off with I Am Maximus for a novice chase win between the two. Now, maybe you could argue that I Am Maximus has improved, ran well at Cheltenham, then won the Irish Grand National, and then an amazing ride that Paul Townend gave. And then won the Drinmore, beat Found a 50, who franked the form at Christmas. So I Am Maximus has been highly tried behind Galopin des Champs since. But just on the basis of Manella Crooner, possibly might be a little bit fresher. He'd be maybe the one I might just give the edge to, but not with confidence. Vanillier, I don't fancy.
I wouldn't fancy Vanillier. Yeah, Jody McGarvey as well, keeping the lines with I Am Maximus, and he got on very well with them here when they won the Drinmore. Never actually run on heavy ground at all, and this is heavy, even though, we've had a couple of dry days. It's a race that I'd go with Manella Crooner, but just because I have to back something.
So nice, soft to heavy on Sunday. Like this will be just very, very testing ground again. First race at 1:20, which is the winning fair juvenile hurdle of Grade 3, just under 2 miles. Bottler, Secret, Church Warden, Pacini, Trust Your Instinct, and Wadhu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Wadhu's won 4 races in a row. A tough mare that is liked in the Gordon Elliott yard. Top rated of these, and if she's taken her racing well, I think she can win this again.
Now, so she is entered in the Fred Winter, and she's entered in the Mayor's Novices Hurdle, and she's entered as a big price in the Triumph. It's interesting that she's won all 5 of her hurdle starts. All 5 from 5, incredible achievement, and she's any price for the Triumph, which maybe suggests that she has limitations. Again, the issue for me here is she's never run on this sort of ground, so that's going to be a question mark, even though it might dry out a bit at Naas. I did an interview with Gavin Cromwell for the Irish Field Cheltenham magazine, and Bottler Secret is a horse he really likes.
Okay.
Yeah, really keen to talk about this horse. He was with Kieran Murphy. He won at Galway on heavy ground, and then he won at Naas in a handicap, 14-1, stepped up to 1.2 miles for the first time in a back end race on soft ground, and I'm sure he cost a few quid after that. The fact that he is starting him off in a Grade 3 is really, really interesting because you had to clarify this to me before we came on the show. He's not in the Fred Winter. He can't be because he wouldn't qualify. So he is entering the Triumph, and I think he's 100-1.
Okay.
So if you're going to have a non-run no bet for the Triumph,
is he fit? Can he be fit? Can you be fit for a race like this?
Yeah, because it's not the strongest race for. If you take out Wadeau, who is obviously penalised for all her wins. Trust Your Instinct has plenty to prove. Good horse in the flat, but I would say is probably being prepared for something else. Pacini's rate 118, which isn't great. And then Churchwarden, again, has a bit to prove, ran okay the last day. So this horse, if he takes to it, it's like a decent maiden hurdle. Very hard to call the betting though, because he hasn't jumped a hurdle. But Gavin really likes this horse. Why he's starting him off in a grade 3, I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's not happening for no reason. There's some thought behind this.
Okay, did he mention Percival Lagalwa in the Horsefield chat?
He did, albeit he had so many horses to get through for Cheltenham. I can't actually remember what he said. I think it was favourable, but he's loads of entries.
First of all, Galwa, somebody asked Gavin about it at the race night, the live night, and then the horse was probably going to be at least second, possibly first in the Leopardstown handicap chasing fell at the last. I think he definitely, if he brushes up his jumping, he could be somewhere. He has a bit of an engine for that test. Let's be clear about it. I still think there's a race in that horse. Horse could pop up somewhere and win something. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think it's a horse that I'm just trying to think what he actually said about. Let's be clear about.
We go on the place Cheltenham, which is 2.5.
Yeah, he's quite hopeful on him as well, and he's probably gotten about. I'm just trying to think. He's probably about 25 entries. I'll see if I can find it before the end of the show.
Yeah,
he did reference it's if you want to buy the Irish Field magazine, some great reading in it actually as well, and he's quite hopeful. It's by far the biggest team he's ever had anyway.
Newlands Chase, 2 miles, grade 3, once again at Nace on Sunday. So we have Ashtree Meadow, Rebel Gold, Epsom Dahu, Espinito Bello, Ivor the Boneless, and Fernie Hollow. Fernie Hollow has not run in over 2 years for Willie Mullins, the Cheltenham bumper winner a few years ago, 2020. Good novice hurdler. Only 2 chase runs. In a normal situation, he wins this in his sleep, but this is not normal with the question marks over the fitness. Like Monkfish did turn back Goran and win, but he had run last year. So what do you make of that?
This is fascinating to see. 791 days off. And it's kind of funny. I always often think if you were to bring your cousin from another country into a betting shop and you had to show him the race card and you see a horse off 791 days, you literally just put a line through him almost all the time. But when it's with Willie Mullins, it's almost like it's not even a negative.
Yeah.
We saw it with that horse of JP's that returned this year who ran so well at Cheltenham, and he ended up winning first time out after a massive absence. Can't think of his name, but anyway, Fernie Hollow, like again, he's the best horse here, and a lot of these horses want further. Ashtree Meadow, you mentioned, wants further. Rebel Gold won the race last year. I'm going to give him a kind of a tentative pick. He's 11 years old, but Pat Foley's doing brilliantly well with his horses, and he's a horse that handles this ground quite well. He didn't run too badly the last day off mark of 144. I'm not saying he's improving. I would just be concerned if you look at the others. Epsom Dahu, couldn't have him. Espinito Bello wants further. Ashtree Meadow wants further for all that. I wouldn't rule him out. Maybe wants better ground. And Fernie Hollow is surely going to be favoured, but it's a hell of a layoff. And if he's a very strong horse as well, so if he's hard on himself here, he'll find it hard to get home.
As well in the heavy ground. Actually, do you like Espinito Bello? He has won 5 times at Nace, including a handicap hurdle earlier this season. I think if he can be ridden positively on that testing ground, he could test the fitness of Fernie Hollow. But our free-to-air selections, Johnny McMahon and Double J. What do you want to pick this weekend for the free-to-air?
I'm gonna go with the horse actually running tomorrow. Again, it's sticking with the Gavin Cromwell team.
Right.
Really, after
Strike while the iron's hot.
Strike while the iron's hot, and he never seems to be out of form. He's certainly in good form at the moment. I'm not going to go with Bottle Secret. I'm going to go with Jouster running in the 3:15 at Ferryhouse. Fell at the second last here the last day. The last horse of Gavin's that I can think of who fell at the second last travelling well was a certain Now Is the Hour. So it's worked out all right for him.
So let's go through that again. What time is this now tomorrow?
3:15 Ferryhouse.
3:15 at Ferryhouse for Johnny Ward, who had a 12-1 nap on the member section last week of the Racing Pod, and also tipped up Man in the race that was the Grand National Trial at Haydock last week. So Gavin Cromwell, Jouster, Keith Donoghue on board, number 3 in the 3:15 at Ferryhouse. I'm looking at this. What am I going to go with? I'm going to go with Manella Crooner. at 11-4 for William Hill in the Bobby Joe Chase at Ferryhouse tomorrow.
I actually don't think he'll go off that price. I think it's a 3-horse race really, and he has a definite chance.
I think he's valued at 11-4 Manila Crooner with Jack Kennedy, the man of the moment in the saddles. That's the free to air selections. Make man a double J on the Racing Pod this week. This is the Racing Pod and Off the Ball. If you're listening to the free version of the podcast, we'll be leaving you here. But if you're looking for more, including our analysis of the Saturday cards at Kempton and Newcastle, go to offtheball.com/join to subscribe and get the full podcast every Friday with all our racing tips, insights and stories from the week's action.
The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Best odds guaranteed on all Irish and UK racing. 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.